is Mila Johansen. And Mila Johansen was one of our presenters on the last Sing Your Heart Song Summit that we held in July. And I can tell you from a personal experience that she helped me to get back on track with my writing. So I'm excited to bring her to this Sing Your Heart Song Summit. Mila Johansen is a public speaker. In fact, if I remember correctly, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but she has been a Toastmaster for over 20 years, which is amazing. I've been a Toastmaster for 6, going on 7 years, and I am totally in awe. Anyway, she is a public speaker, a writing and publishing coach, a teacher and writer. She is a best-selling author of 5 books, and she enjoys writing screenplays. She is one of the fastest people on the planet to help you get your short book done and on Amazon. Please welcome Mila Johansen with her presentation From Poverty Syndrome to Manifesting Abundance, her own journey. Over to you, Mila.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so honored to be here again. And I love meeting all these people. And I loved everything you said, Kate. You have a beautiful presence on camera. I've been on stage all my life. I found out that giving was my way to abundance. Well, I didn't do it for that reason. It just turned out that it happened. And we're in a store here. Well, first of all, behind me, this is, I'm not a diva. This is the Cinderella Project in our town. And my internet goes out at my house. So I come to my friend's boutique and she has all these beautiful dresses that are available for young people to come and get who don't have the money to wear a dress to prom or to other events. So it's called the Cinderella Project. You could start a Cinderella Project in your own neighborhood. I have found that the more I give, the more I get. Oh, that's not why I give, but it's what has happened to me and what has created my abundance. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today is how I came from absolutely nothing, often going to bed without dinner, going to school without lunch and watching the other kids eat their lunches, and coming to marrying an organic farmer and never going hungry again, and drawing lots of things to me. So it's so amazing. And stay for the little workshop afterwards, because the wonderful thing is that Steve and Olivia and Irma are going to put together a compilation book of us writing to something. Like I wrote mine to Dear Abundance. Like, I've always known you, I just didn't know it. You know, you were always waiting, I didn't see you. Or I'll read a little bit of it to inspire you, but we're going to do that at the end. And then I love that idea because, you know, some people are paying these huge amounts of money to be in compilation books, which is great. But if he chooses your beautiful letter, dear, your grandmother, your career, whatever's happened, we'll brainstorm those ideas, then you could be in this book. And I think that would be a fabulous thing to do. Anyway, I grew up in total poverty with a single mother. So I have a soft heart for single mothers. And we often went to bed without dinner. We went to school without lunch. And I've been writing this book called The Cinderella Monologues. And it's all the things that happened to me and all the things that might seem bad and all the graces. But when I write in the book, I say, don't feel sorry for me. Feel sorry for the children around you now who don't have the food, and go help them. So that's the thing I always focus on. And the reason I write what I write is to inspire people that no matter where they come from, they can be anything. And I've been on a podcaster summit once or twice a week since I've been put out my big book about my grandmother. It's called From Cowgirl to Congress. And I always end it with, no matter where you've come from, no matter what has happened to you, you can be anything, you can be anybody. Now, at the same time, I knew who I was and I knew what I wanted to be. At 8 years old, I wanted to be a writer. And Mary Poppins came out, the first movie, and so that totally dates me. But I went home and I was always a believer that anything could happen, no matter how dire things might have been. I don't think I realized was dire. I was just used to it. And so I went home and I drew out chalk drawings. Now, I'm not an artist. I've never been an artist. I'll never be an artist. I can only draw stick people, maybe. And so I did the chalk drawings that were in the movie, I thought, and I closed my eyes and I jumped onto the paper and nothing happened. But I still believed it would. I just kept thinking it would. So after about 10 tries, I thought, well, maybe I could write it. I could be a writer because I was reading Nancy Drew and the Bobbsey twins. So I started writing a book and I wrote a page and a half and I quit because I was 8 and a half. I was 8. And so at the same time, the most amazing thing happened to me. We were driving to church and every Sunday, and on the left side of the freeway, I remember exactly how it looked. There was an A-frame house, kind of like a cabin, but 2-story, kind of big. And I thought, I want that house. I want to live in that house. And I thought in my little 8-year-old mind that in about a year I could earn the money, or maybe next week. I really thought that. And so I one day there was an open house and I had my mother stop and she indulged me. And we went into the house and looked at it. And I just knew I could have that house. Sometimes you have to wait a very long time to get something. It doesn't always happen at once, but I still believed. I never stopped believing. And I had 2 wonderful people in my life at that point. I had my mother was always sick. She was a teacher. So she'd come home and go to bed at 5. She'd leave at 5 and we'd have to walk ourselves to school, probably why we didn't have lunches. And then she would go to bed at 5. So I had to raise my brother, who was younger than me, and make dinner. And that's why I'm writing the book, The Cinderella Monologues, because I was the Cinderella. I did 4 hours of work every day. And he didn't. He only had to do a half hour when he got older. He only had to mow the lawn and take out the trash. That's a half hour a week. He didn't make it out of our neighborhood. We grew up in a gangland, and I turned out okay because I was really innocent and I just didn't participate and I didn't know what was going on, but he didn't make it out. So it's one of those stories. But anyway, I had my granny, my very famous suffragette granny, who had taught Eleanor Roosevelt to speak. I didn't know all this then. And I learned a lot about it when I just wrote the book for the 100th anniversary 2 years ago. And she told me story after story, and I hung out with her. She half raised me. When I got older, she took me along in her 90s when she spoke with Gloria Steinem, Marlo Thomas, and Jane Fonda in Hollywood often. And she just took me under her wing and made me the woman I am today. It was amazing because my mother wasn't available, but I had my grandmother and I had a spiritual teacher, Anne Marie Colton, who helped raise me also. And she was an amazing person. When I was 18, I went to her and she said, "You are the least concentrated person I have ever met." And I probably was. And she gave me the gift of meditation. And from 18, I've hardly ever missed a day in my entire life. And there's a thing about meditation is that if you start, you almost need to keep going. And because it's almost like having a baby, you have to feed your baby every day, right? Yeah, and so even if you could close your eyes and do 3 breaths, but try not to miss at least the 3 breaths, because the days I haven't meditated, which are very few and far between, have sometimes turned into terrible days. So it's almost like if you're going to start, keep it going. I think Steve understands that. I can see him nodding. And so, but it saved me. It took me about 15 years to have things start happening in here, but that's because I was so young and naive. And I know people who have started later in life, and when we're more mature, it can happen immediately. And that's the main thing that saved my life was Anne Marie and my beautiful, beautiful grandmother. Well, I always, and at the same time, I was daydreaming all the time. I don't think teachers liked me because my head was out the window in the clouds, but I was becoming the writer I would become someday. I was in training. I know that now. And there was nothing they could do to train me. You know, Albert Einstein failed in school. The teachers didn't like him, but how could they teach him what he was supposed to invent later? It's impossible. Someone said to Einstein once, "What's the theory of relativity?" And he said, "I don't know. It's in a book. I leave my mind open for new ideas." So I try to live by that precept. And so I would daydream about my husband. I knew there was this man, I could feel him, I could talk to him. I'd lay on the dolphin in the park and look up at the sky, and I would talk to my husband. And later I met that exact man, and in college. And my mother, she tricked me into becoming a writer. She knew I wanted to be a writer. So at 18 years old, she said, "Mila, just write one sentence a day for a month." Well, you can't just write one sentence a day. So by the end of the month, I was a writer. And I thank her for that. So when I went to college, I met Rich. We were singled out at an intramural baseball game. No one came to play the game on the team except for he and I that day, and we went out. And so he put me to work on his ranch, his organic citrus ranch over there up in Northern California. It's near Chico. And I looked at all the fruit coming out and I said, "Oh my gosh, we're going to give this fruit away." He said, "Oh, no, no, no. We don't give fruit away. We don't give anything away," because his family had come from the Depression consciousness, if you're aware of that. And so I went out, and now we give 10,000 to 20,000 pounds of citrus a year to the food banks. And I find the more we give, the more we get. Like I always say, that's not why I do it. So when we first met, we were kind of a poor company. I mean, a couple, and we rented all our houses. But here's what started raising my money consciousness. His family lived in La Jolla, California, on the beach. And I would go there to boogie board and body surf, and I'd come into town all ragged and wet and with my little cover up and my thongs and walk around town. And the shop owners were like, "Oh, they weren't happy with me talk about dressing, like Kate was talking about." But I started looking around, and after a few years of this, I went, wait a minute. Anybody could have this. I could have some of this wealth. And I just started, my consciousness started raising, and suddenly some kind of money started coming our way. And I was a landscaper besides working on the ranch then. And I started daydreaming. Got to remember to daydream. I forgot for a while after things got to a certain point, but you have to remember to wish and daydream. So while I was landscaping, I was daydreaming and thinking, how much money do I want to make a day? And I started adding things up in my head. I'm going to make $500 a day. Well, I couldn't believe it. And a few years later, I was making $500 a day, which was a lot in the 1980s. And it was consistent. And so I had daydreamed that, and I was manifesting all along. And I just didn't realize it. We bought a farm up here in the foothills, and his father wanted to move in with us, and we had always lived with him during the harvest. A lovely Norwegian man, 6'7", laughed all the time, loved Seinfeld. And so he helped us build a beautiful home up here, which we probably couldn't afford it on our own. And one day I was going down below it to pick lavender, and I looked back up at the house. Guess what? It was the A-frame home that I had wanted when I was 8 years old, but it was 3 times as big. And there it was, the exact shape. I had to laugh. I just thought that was like so amazing. So I've really been working on wishing and manifesting and doing more. I have a friend, Tawny. She knows how to manifest. She tells me these stories that are so amazing. One time she was in Scotland, and they only had $2,000 left in their account. And she said to her husband, "Scott, we must spend all $2,000 before we fly home, or we will not be making money soon." I don't know why she knew this. She just has this sense of it. So she bought this very expensive coat that I saw, and I'm like, "Wow, where'd you get that coat? That's like amazing." She goes, "I had to spend it to spend my last $2,000. When she came home 3 days later, Scott got a call. for a job, 400,000 a year, doing accounting for some big firm back east. And then she took on one of the Chernobyl kids, as she adopted her to come every summer to stay with her, to get away from the nuclear. If they could get away from the nuclear debris, they could live longer. It would put years on their life to get away for a week or a month. So she adopted Anastasia. And every year Anastasia would earn money from her, $1,000 a year, which would pay for her lawyer school when she got to college. That's how much it would cost. And so she would just put her to work all summer, and she'd go home with enough money to go to college in Belarus. Well, she wanted to go to San Francisco to finish up her schooling. And so Tawny called a man who she knew she had a lot of money. Tawny's very gregarious, by the way. And she said, I have a student, a girl who I've been mentoring for years and years. And she got that man to give her $50,000 to send Anastasia to the last leg of school in San Francisco. It's just amazing what she does. One time we were at a yard sale and she said, nobody's coming. I'm going to manifest people coming down the road. 2 hours later, a woman came and bought $10,000 worth of furniture out of her house. And I'm like, well, that's not me. I'm not good at that. But from hanging out with her, we have the same birthday, August 29th. But from hanging out with her for years and years, I've started doing it. And here's what happened. I got so good at it lately. She gave me some words. I go, Tawny, give me some words. I'm going to work on this. Even though I've manifested a lot, I thought I want to manifest more now. And so I started pulling in a lot of money, just believing in it, that it's going to happen. I have these words for you that are so amazing. It's going to be a title of my next book. And so I started doing it. And don't tell everyone in the world, and don't tell my husband, but suddenly my husband got a grant for $80,000 for the ranch. We've never gotten money. They only give money to big soy farmers. They never give it to small organic farmers, ever have we even gotten $1,000. And then he got money for a new tractor and to insulate our packing shed. And I went, oh my God, it worked. But I didn't tell him because he wouldn't know I had done all that wishing. And I don't know if he would believe that part. So that's what happened. Then I went, wait a minute. I wanted some of that money to come to me so I could use it for my projects. And when I'm in these classes I'm taking, because during COVID, I decided to reinvent myself, and I was teaching at the local school for adults. So I thought, well, I want to learn more. So I went and took all the tech, all the classes, Imana Gay, and all these people. And I started teaching online, and that's what I'm doing. I'm drawing all these people to me. And so I revamped my little wishing thing and said, let's have it come to me directly. Well, suddenly that's what started happening, tons of it. It was like amazing. So I had to, and one person who was, I heard her speak was, I think her name is Danielle Amos, and she was saying that she had wished for this job that would bring in tons of money a while back. And suddenly she was driving all over the United States. She went, wait a minute. That wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to drive all over the United States. So she re-wished and got a job where she could do it from home or in her own community and on Zoom. And so she taught me that. Okay, I had to recalculate a little. So I have these words, and that's what's working for me right now. And I always wish to and pray that it's right, that it is meant to be. I don't want to just have something come to me that I might have to pay karma for or something, So here's the new words that I have that, and someone told me, oh, that's a secret. Well, I didn't know that, but that's what came to me. So here they are. Ask lightly, believe, and say thank you. Ask lightly, believe, and say thank you. Tawny said that. Say thank you as if it's already happened. So I've been doing that along with my prayers. I'm a big prayer. When I was a teenager, I would pray every night that I could help the world. I don't know why I thought that as a teenager, but I would pray to God that every single night. So anyway, that's what I'm doing. And it's really, really working. And I'm so excited. I'm going to do more. I'm working on it. I have a long ways to go. And I take any suggestions from anybody. And it's very exciting. So now I am a writer. I have manifested that. I am coaching people on writing their short book. Doesn't have to be a long book. The shortest book you could put on Amazon with a spine is 36 pages, 98 pages to get your name on the spine and the name of the book. And most people are writing the comfortable 125 pages. So after I spent years on my grandmother's book, which is 300 pages, I wrote the comfortable 125 pages. So you can think about it as not a giant chore. Anybody can write a 36-page book in a day or two about something they know, get it edited, because we want good books out there, and get it up on Amazon in 2 weeks. Amazon is a great resource. They give you a place to put your bio. They let you get samples. So this is a sample book. It has a little gray mark across it. And so what you do is you get your book in there. You don't order them yet. You don't publish them yet, but you order samples. This sample is only $2.35 plus shipping. This bigger one was $4.35 plus shipping. And so later, and you get your samples. We had to do 8 samples with this because they had 98 pictures. This one was a lot easier, didn't take as much, so only 1 sample. And then you can order those same books when you're going to speak at like a book club or the library, because when you speak in public, which was totally nixed during COVID, and why I'm speaking on 1 or 2 summits or podcasts a week, I'm worldwide, and I would never have imagined that. I would have stayed in my own neighborhood and maybe toured to Washington, D.C., where she worked. But you can go on to podcasts, but if you can speak in person, everyone there will buy your book and you'll sign them. That's sometimes where I have my most book sales, is at women's clubs, book clubs, libraries. And then you can just keep printing them up and carrying them with you. You should always have a box in your car. And then you can ship them to people as well. I've had several people say, oh my God, I read your book. It's so fast. I read it from cover to cover. Order me 21. So we did. And then one woman said she was giving them out for her birthday to everybody. So give people that idea, like for Christmas. Hey, my book is available. Give it to all of your friends for Christmas. And then one thing to remember about podcasts is you don't have to wait for your book to be ready to speak on podcasts, because you already know your material. You can start speaking and then have a book later, even though it's great to have your little flag, Anyway, so I'm doing some workshops coming up, and the next workshop I do that's a lot of fun that everybody comes to, and it's called Write Your Short Book in a Day. And the next one is going to be January 15th. It's a Saturday from 10 to 3. And you won't believe how much you get done. One woman said that's the most writing she did in the whole year. And if you stick to my little formula, you can write a book in a day, or you get a really good start on your longer book. And the short book can often be the outline for your longer book. And what I shared with Steve when I was on his podcast was 20 minutes a day is all we ask. Toni Morrison, the novelist, she only had 15 minutes a day when she wrote her first novel. And the rest is history, because she had children and housework and a job. And so that's something to think about, that if you did 5 to 20 minutes a day, it could add up to a book. So don't think of it as a big chore, as unattainable. It's so much easier than you think, and that's what I do. So here, I'll put in the chat really quick a link to, let's see, to the Write Your Short Book in a Day. It's only $27 and it's a lot of fun. It's like Kate, I found out if the people didn't pay a little bit, they didn't always show up. So I put a little small nominal fee on it, and we have a great time. We sit there and what we do is 20-minute prompts, and then a little bit of information about publishing and very interesting facts to help you along the way. It's a lot of fun. And then I also put 10 free speech tips for you. My grandmother taught Eleanor Roosevelt to speak, and she taught me to speak. And then I also have a Facebook group where I just always put tons of information and tips on there. So you could look at all of that. Anyway, I want to make sure that we get time for you to write. And so I want to maybe have Olivia talk about that for a minute, and then we'll go right into it. And just remember, there's enough for everyone. Energy is limitless. Money is limitless. And like Oprah always says, we have to reinvent ourselves until the end.
Thank you, Mila, so much. So beautiful to hear your story going from poverty to abundance. And so for this next segment, we really want to introduce this workshop to help all of you be able to participate in our Heart Notes anthology. So going along with the Sing Your Heart song, these are Heart Notes. So these can be letters to abundance, which Mila did, or a letter to money, or a letter to your inner child, or a letter to scarcity. Whatever it is that's pulling on your heartstrings, would be a good reflection piece. And it's, a writing exercise that I think Mila will walk us through. And Steve will put in the link in the chat again. You can submit your submissions to us and we'll consider them for the anthology, for the compilation book. Steve, is there anything else that you wanted to add to?
Nope, that's good. Well, actually, let me just share. I've written, I think, a little over a dozen of these heart notes in the last 6 weeks. And when the first time that I did it, I was actually inspired by the movie The Collateral Beauty, which is a, gosh, what is his name? I can see his face. I cannot remember his name. Dang it. Will Smith, is that?
Will Smith.
Anyway, he was visited by death, love, and time. And he had written letters to each of them, and it was life-changing for him. Let's just say, keep it at that. And so I thought, what if I wrote letters to my own kind of heart concerns? So I've written letters to money. I've written letters to my inner child. I've written letters to the legacy of my dad, who passed about 8 years ago. And each time I write, just kind of open up my heart and see what's inside with regard to these topics, these concerns. It has been really, really eye-opening for me and a really healing experience. As I shared earlier in the summit, when Emily asked us to draw our relationship with money, I'm going to turn off my background for a second. The image that I drew was very different than it would have been a month ago. That I have a very healthy and healing relationship with money, which has not been the case for quite some time. And there's a whole long story about that. And if you were to read my money letter, you would hear more about that. But I want to give time to Mila and to each of you so that you can write your own heart note and see what manifests. So back to you, Mila.
Okay, I'm going to just do two things. I'm going to read you a tiny bit of my letter, and then I would like everyone to start posting. I'm not going to read the whole thing. And it's going to make your letter, about 500 to 700 words, and be open to us editing it just to clean it up a little, And then, of course, Steve and Olivia and Irma will choose the ones they want. And so we just all have to kind of be open to that, but write them because it's so exciting. And you can write two, you could submit more than one. It's fine. And I think it's going to be a very exciting book. And like I say, it's hard to get into compilation books. So this is like given to you as a gift. So I'm just going to be a little bit of mine. And if you want to start posting ideas of what to write, I wrote Dear Abundance. You can write Dear Career or Dear Granny, or we'll get the ideas in a minute, but here it is. Dear Abundance, we have always been friends. I sometimes didn't recognize you and feel I got to know you slowly. You were always there in your secret ways. When I lived all those years growing up with my single mother, we often went to bed without dinner. Fortunately, because she was single, there were never any extra men around the house to molest me. As I grew up into a young adult, I learned that almost half my friends had been molested by men in their immediate proximity. That turned out to be an abundant blessing. No matter how poor we were, I always expected you. An incurable daydreamer, I sat through 12 years of school looking out the window. I imagined myself in all kinds of wonderful, adventurous situations, training to become the writer I am now. I don't think the teachers liked me, but I knew who I was, a cloud jumping princess, a shepherdess, a planter of apple trees, a chimpanzee trainer, and even an animal rescuer. And no matter how shabby my clothes were, or how the other kids brought lunches to school when I often went without, I remember saying to myself, I don't want to be any of them. I want to be myself. And then I keep addressing abundance. So let's put in the chat now ideas of what you could write to give other people ideas, because sometimes we get stuck. And you could write to your younger self. You could write to your older self. So let's go ahead and just start putting in ideas. Let's have a brainstorm session. And then when you feel like you have found your subject, start writing. Don't stop. No editing. Only new writing. That's what a lot of writers are doing now. And you can edit it later and send it into the address that Olivia will give you. And if you want any questions for me, that is fine too. Yeah, inner child, that's good. Oh gosh, future self. What other ideas do we have? Can write to your heart, your universe, guardian angel, yay. Your voice, accomplishment, your unmet half brothers. That's really good, especially with, all of those gene things coming out. I love that. I have so many friends who have found a lost brother or sister and got to know them, and even found out that one of them came from affairs, but they all got into it and got to know each other. It was fantastic. Okay, a schedule, good. It could be anything. It could be to a color you like. It could be to an animal. So when you feel like it, go ahead and just start scribbling and just say, dear, and you can change it. You can say, oh wait, I really want to write now to my garden or whatever it is. And that's good. My little child at a specific age. Oh, that's so good.
Mila, how much time do we have to write?
Let's say 20 minutes, because you can finish it later, but let's write together, because now we know we'll get it going, right? And you may finish it, because it's not that long. If you write 500 words, that's about 10 minutes, really, if you just scribble. Okay? Yep. So excellent. 1, 2, okay. 3, go. Pen on paper or fingers on keyboard. A lot of people are choosing to write back on pen and paper, and schools like Harvard aren't allowing laptops in schools anymore because people remember the information if they write it down. And if you've already written one, write another one. I'm going to start another one right now. Oh, I like that. Steve just wrote 2 little wins. I like that. When you want to post who you wrote to, I wrote to dear 6-year-old self.
I love that Barbara Kingsolver quote. Give yourself
Yeah.
permission to write a bad book.
What she means is write it fast, get it down, and then fill it in later. And I think a lot of people get stuck. Oh, am I spelling it right? You know, and I've never had good spelling or grammar, but I have editors.
Yes. Well, it's actually how I studied art history in my undergrad. Actually went on to get a degree in marketing, but for a while I was really close to finishing a major in art history. And looking at all the Renaissance artists and from other areas, when I finally gave myself permission to create, to draw, to paint, to whatever, I thought that I had to write, I thought I had to paint or draw like Rembrandt or Michelangelo or Da Vinci or whatever. And so when I did what I did and looked at what they did, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just suck. And then when I finally just let myself to do what I do, I was like, you know what? I really like what I do. And a big part of that was going into the children's library and looking at the variety of illustrations that there are, like Roald Dahl's books, or one of my favorite illustrators is Oliver Jeffers. That, it's a really simple illustration, not Renaissance like at all,
Yeah.
but it's beautifully done. And, something that's much more attainable. So when I think of give yourself permission to write a bad book, it's just, let yourself express. And as you express, it gets better over time.
See, that's a really good point. I make that point when I teach, is because Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet, right? Well, that was not new. He wrote it from an ancient Greek poem called Pyramus and Thisbe. And that poem was written from an even older poem. So there's nothing new under the sun. You could copy exactly how someone's writing and it will not look the same. I promise you. Sometimes that's a good way to do it. You want to go look, let's say you want to write a book on self-help, on weight loss or whatever, or a certain kind of novel. Go get those books, look at them, and pattern it after it. It will not come out like it. It's a good way to go. Shakespeare did it, so we can do it.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you said that about the art, because that's so important. So put in, let's see, I wrote to my 2-year-old self, yay. It's a journey of self-discovery. So just, write to anything and make sure you turn them in, because we want all of them, and they're all good. It's all important. And I don't know what else you want to say about that, Olivia or Steve.
No, that's perfect.
I really enjoyed this exercise. I'd like to share if that's okay.
Oh, can you speak louder? Somehow we're not hearing you.
I think you need to move closer to the microphone, Olivia.
Oh, can you hear me now?
A little bit.
All right, how about that?
That's better.
Okay. I was gonna say I really enjoyed this exercise, just writing in the moment and just going for it, right? And I'd like to share a letter to my inner child, if that's okay.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So, dear inner child, I'm sorry that I've forgotten about you. I really thought there's no place for you in my life. I'm supposed to be adulting, right? And being responsible for so many things right now in my life, for myself and for other people, and having to take care of everyone. And I realize now that you can be a friend to me even in my later years. sometimes you tug at me and you are telling me that you want to play. And that could be just taking a moment to pause and coloring in my coloring books with all my markers spread around me, making a mess, and that's okay. Or sometimes it's just taking a day at the beach and having a carefree day without any agenda. Or having an ice cream cone that's piled 3 scoops high. And I remember I had to start babysitting when I was 10. So I think that's when I really just had to be big sister and take care of my brothers. And then I think that you went away when Jimmy died because he was the most playful of all. And I didn't feel like playing anymore. And now I'm inviting you, asking you if you'd like to come back and be with me. Because you really are the source of happiness and joy and laughter and fun and creativity and all of that wonderful carefree spirit and childlike wonder that's at the root of everything that I do. And a really wise friend that I've got to meet recently, Brenda, she says to embrace you, to hold you and hug you like never before. And as I step into my new role as a laughter yoga leader, I really see that you shine in me. And now I love to play and show others that they can too. And teach them that it's just as natural as ever to embrace and love your inner child. I'm on a mission to elevate joy power and help people guard their hearts so that their heart songs can flow purely and freely from their heart. And I just want to say thank you so much for waiting patiently for me in the corner while I call you back home.
Oh,
I feel that when you and I are together, it's like magic, and a ripple effect of good vibes and a positive vibration can be sent out to everyone around us. I really cherish the lessons that you're teaching me to make time for self-care and do the things that delight and excite me. I see everything around me with loving eyes, as if I'm just waking for the first time from a really long nap, and I love everything that I see. Thank you so much, Inner Child, for being my friend.
wow, that's going to change lives. You know, you're a very good writer.
Olivia, that was awesome.
Was. You got tears
Made
in
me
my
cry.
eyes. Goodness.
Made me cry.
Beautiful.
Oh,
I know each one of them are going to be that beautiful. I know, I can feel it.
Yes. Does anybody else want to share?
I will.
Yay.
Great. Do
I'm
it.
a little bit nervous about this.
You're in a safe place.
Oh yeah, we're the safest people you can know.
Dear Money, I want to thank you for always being there, even though I kept you a secret most of the time and I was ashamed of you. See, Olivia, you already had me crying, so now it's easy. Oh dear. I never thought it was okay to have you, but I did love spending you on pretty things I would never allow myself to buy at full price. And then when people complimented me, I was sure to tell them how good of a deal it was, that I never spent that much. Even though I was ashamed and was afraid I would lose you, I always had enough to pay my bills, have fun, and buy food. I was very proud when my cousin said, "You are the only person I know that could make $16,000 look like 60. I always tried to make you small so I would not look bad in some way. I would hide you from myself and others, thinking that you were hard to come by. I thought if I just worked harder, tried harder, I would have more. And it never got to be more for a very long while. But I see now, you were so generous with me. As I never had credit card debt and paid my bills on time. Then when I started to earn more, I started to mistreat you by continuing continuing to ignore you, and the gift that you were by getting myself into debt and then more debt on credit when I had the ability to pay it off, but I needed to hide you because I was still ashamed of having you. I didn't finish, so.
You will, and that's, oh God, that's my story too. I mean, really, you said some really profound things.
Thanks.
That was beautiful, Kate. And do give yourself the gift of finishing it.
Give us the gift. We want that gift. We want to put you in our book.
Yes, please.
So I have a question, because this is what came up for me. I saw that, I mean, there's a whole bunch of new stuff in there that I've never looked at. So there's a lot to process. So I don't know that I can finish it. But what came up for me was a shift of perspective, because I found, I don't know, I don't even know how to ask the question. If you're still in the, like, it's so funny because I like to use this phrase, it's never the end, you're always in the middle.
Mhm.
We never arrive, ever.
No.
Yes.
And so it's like, how do you complete the story?
I think with that,
Because it doesn't end, right?
No,
So.
and do that. Just say, I'm still in process with you, or something, you know, like I'm still learning from you. I still, you know, it's like my thing to abundance, like, wow, where's our relationship going next? You know, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. I'm writing, one of the books that I'm working on is Arrived. The main title is Arrived, and the subtitle is How Facing the Darkness Inspired Me to Shine. And having spent a couple of years working on this book, and it's largely the journey from when I was a corporate accountant and severely depressed, and honestly almost took my life,
Yeah.
to today, where, you know, I love life, and, you know, I'm excited about all the stuff that's going on. But there's that arrived idea. And what I've come to the conclusion of, at least for myself, is, you know, it doesn't mean that you've gotten to your final destination. You know, you're not dead. You're not, you know, you're not done. But just as when, you know, you've got a team that's getting together to do rowing or something, when someone has arrived, you know, gotten to that point to join the team, they've arrived at that point. You know, you haven't even done the race, you haven't even gotten in the boat, but someone has arrived to be there, to be part of that. You know, and similarly, you know, when you're, you know, using your phone and you ask Google lady, you know, how do I get to, you know, the high school or whatever, and you get to that point, it's Google Maps says you have arrived, even though you've just gotten there. You're not done. You haven't even started what you're actually going to do, but you have arrived at that point. So, you know, you don't, your relationship with money is likely not going to ever be finished until, you know, they put you 6 feet under or whatever. But it is at a point right now where you can say, at this point in my life, this snapshot of my life, this is what it's like for me right now. This is how I am. This is where I'm at right now.
So that's how I can I can get to the place where I am now and then say, this is where I'm at right now. And I just had a conversation with money and said, hey, what's next?
Well, I was thinking you could end it almost like I can't wait to see where we go next. Or,
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, when I finished mine, the way that I finished mine was, I think it was something along the lines of, you know, I can't wait for our friendship to develop, or something like that.
Well, it's interesting because what I find profound is that it was just really an in the face kind of thing about how easy it is to say, oh, there's a shame in there. I mean, I literally, the word that I used was shocking to me. So there's such a profoundness in the relationships or anything, the relationship with yourself, like even though, you know, however place you've come to, like work, and I'm sure that lots of other people feel this way. It's the reason that I'm saying it out loud is because whether we're business owners or healers or whatever, is that there's this, well, I haven't mastered that yet, so I can't share it. Or I haven't won at that game yet, so I can't share it. When we know that it's the math in our life that creates the connection with others.
Yes.
You know, Kate, to inspire you about the end, I just saw that show on PBS about Hemingway. He wrote 47 endings to Farewell to Arms.
Right.
Wow.
Hemingway.
47, that is a lot.
It's pretty cool.
Wow. Yes. So please, you know, it's not your relationship with money is unfolding. It is reaching this point in time, right?
Yeah. Like I'm amazed at the blessings now that are happening without the trying piece. And I'm like, I mean, writing that was a shock. So it's just like, don't even think about anybody even ever reading it. Just write it, because I'm really getting how I used to journal all the time.
That's how to write. And you know, the other thing is, everything you said was kind of true for me. So what these are notes that other people can connect to and go, I feel that way. I'm not alone. I mean, that's where all the talk shows did. They showed people that they weren't the only person who was molested or the only person who
Absolutely.
didn't
Yeah.
have money.
And I never realized that I was ashamed of having money.
Yeah, I was too. Well,
Wow.
I was ashamed of not having money, and then I was ashamed. You know, we have like two huge trucks.
Yes.
Every once in a while, I go deliver, and someone at the health food store will say, "Why are you driving that huge truck?" And finally, I came up with a statement. It took me years. Well, I guess I could drive a Volkswagen, but it would take 10 trips. Would that be economical? I mean, because they feel like I have one more truck than them, that I have a lot of money, and I never have. So it's this judgment money thing that we all do on so many levels. So I think what you wrote was completely valuable.
Beautiful.
And my trucks are banged up. So who wants my banged up trucks, by the way?
I'm going to end the recording.